And I told her, I was like,
It's overheard.
oh,
Yeah.
no.
Man, I'm so cold still.
It's a horrible story.
My kid was a lacrosse outside for the last hour, sitting outside freezing. I'm like, I only bought one jacket. I'm like, I'm an idiot.
20 degrees out.
Oh, it's so bad. So I'm still freezing.
Everybody down the street being taken.
You want to, here's water. Oh, you're good. Is that water? Water is good. Just getting ready.
Oh, no, I hate that. You get up and walk out.
Same thing with Sean. Sean's like,
Yeah, but now, then they're
so I
gonna
might
come
go
out
out.
to a nursing
I'm like,
home.
okay. So, you're good?
Talk in the hallway.
Yeah.
There's two apartments that those doors are on 31. So even if it's 3 feet, the doors are gonna swing towards traffic.
Did you settle the Ye Old Tavern sidewalk where they can serve out in their side yard outside?
I think so. That was a
Burke and I
while
were
ago.
doing it.
She telegraphed that during our
They had to
budget meeting this
redo
last
the
week.
exit so that they weren't walking on our sidewalk or something.
To go
Not ballet.
outside.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think about, yeah.
Is that all? So?
We should probably talk about that. Right? Good? I think we're good? Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, March 18th City Council meeting. Clerk, please call the roll. Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is the public comment portion. This is for items that are not on the agenda this evening. Is there anyone that would like to speak on behalf of the public comment portion? All right, see none. Moving on to the consent agenda. Any items that council would like to pull for separate consideration? Alderwoman Bassi?
D, please.
Any others? See none. I am looking for approval for consent agenda items 5A through 5C and 5E through 5H. Alderman Cook? Second. Alderman Strack?
I'll second.
Discussion on these items by council? Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, council. Item pulled by Alderwoman Bassi is 5D, resolution authorizing Mayor Jett and Deputy Clerk Johnson to convey the governmental entity's interest in .117 acres of 914 Front Street in McHenry County, Illinois, to the people of the state of Illinois, Department of Transportation for the highway purposes of the sum of $43,100. Go ahead, floor is yours.
Very question for Director Lynch. The $43,000, where will that revenue be put?
The revenue will be in the general fund.
Is there any way we can allocate it to a neighborhood street or a neighborhood park?
So it's absolutely up to council. As Ross can probably tell you, we did spend a lot of money on that property to get it in the state it is in.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be, but it can be used for what you all vote for.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
All right, thank you. Looking for approval for 5B. Looking for motion. Alderwoman Bassi.
Approve item D.
Thank you. Second. Alderman Santee.
Second motion.
Discussion on this item by council. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It gets 2 votes. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, council. First item, discussion item on the agenda is 6A, is Old Mill Ponds HOA water supply discussion. Director Pawlowski, floor is yours. Or go ahead, Alderman Santee.
You know, if
Attorney McCarroll, just so everyone understands, I will recuse myself from this discussion item.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So, staff was approached last year by the Old Mill Ponds Homeowners Association. As the agenda supplement states, the ponds and the water features that are on these properties are provided by a well, a private well, and a series of pumps. So if you're familiar with Old Mill Ponds, there's, I don't know, 5 or 6 ponds, and then there's a creek that runs through everybody's backyard if you don't live on the pond. This well is located on private property currently, however, it has failed. The association has looked for other areas within the homeowners association property to replace the well, put a new well in so that they could provide the water features to the residents. And the only spot that they could come up with, or the best spot that they could come up with, was the city-owned parcel as depicted in your packet. So tonight what staff is looking for is an answer on if we will, so the association is actually requesting that we allow the well to be drilled on the city property with an easement and that we maintain ownership of that property. Staff is actually recommending that we sell that property to the homeowners association. 2 reasons. One is that's been there that property has been there since the subdivision was platted, and we've never used it. Its purpose was for a bicycle path and sidewalk. If we do sell the property, we're looking to get an easement across that property for a future bicycle path or sidewalk to access Peterson Park if Peterson Park is ever expanded to the south. You can see those in the pictures that are in your packet. So there's 3 options there that staff came up with. One is approve an easement on the property for the HOA to install a well and transfer the maintenance obligation of the parcel, which would be mowing, to the HOA through an agreement. 2 would be sell the property to the HOA. An appraisal would need to be performed and the property would be sold at fair market value. Staff recommended that the city ask for a minimum of a 20-foot wide easement from front to back for future sidewalk/bike path into Peterson Park. And then obviously number 3 is to not allow any use of that parcel or sell it. So again, staff, this is just a discussion item. There will be no vote tonight. Whatever council decides, we will prepare the documents and bring them in a future meeting.
Thank you, Ross. Open up for discussion by City Council. Alderman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Jett. So I would like option number 1. I would like to retain ownership for our future use to connect that subdivision with potentially the park. I would like to agree to let them put a well on, the well be at their installation cost and their maintenance, obviously, create an agreement there. So it relieves us of liability and responsibility for it. And then in return, they need to take care of it and mow it. But I would be less inclined to sell the property given that its physical location connects the neighborhood with a potential park. And knowing that all of the comprehensive planning that we're doing right now is talking about bike paths and walking paths and expansion of connectivity, I would be hesitant due to location of selling it.
Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree totally with Alderwoman Miller. Keeping that property in our hands, I think, is a good thing. And they've got a situation that needs to fix, so I'm good with that.
Any others? Alderman C.
Is anyone from the homeowners association here? I'd like to hear from them.
Sir, do you mind coming up to the podium?
You have 2 representatives from the homeowners association and then Kevin from Marengo Well, who is actually kind of the lead guy. Kevin, is that you in the back? Okay, so Kevin is not here. He's on his way. So yes, they are from the homeowners association.
You mind coming up, sir? Can you please state your name and address for public record?
Sure. Michael McConey, 2007 Spring Creek Lane.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks. I just would really like to have some input from you and your homeowners on the 3 options.
Okay, I'm going to ask a quick question. Sorry.
Okay.
What do we think we want? We want the easement. We want the we don't want to buy the lot. We'd rather not buy the lot. We just want part of the easement. So we're agreeing with the two aldermen that agreed to, just give us a part of it.
Okay, thanks. Well, then I support option one then also.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Kevin, who knows all the detail from Marengo County, he just asked us to be here, so sorry for not being prepared.
No, you're good.
So,
Appreciate it. Thank
okay.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your input.
Before he leaves,
Yes.
Mayor, do we look at the possibility, because you're looking at a well there, you're going to have to pump it to the north, correct? I would imagine you'd have to pump it
Yeah.
to the north. I mean,
Okay.
is there any way of,
I think they're gonna pump right into the creek there. Yeah.
Can you state your
'Cause
name
they've got power
Name and
there.
address for
Yeah.
public record.
okay, so in other words,
Josh T. Meyer, 2024 Old Mill Lane.
Thank you.
from what I recall, excuse me, just so I can explain what I remember, and I don't know if it's still that way, that you recycle the water, that it's pumped all the way from the south up to the north?
It flows from, the current well is on the south end of the property. And it flows at a higher end, and it comes to the north end of the property, and then it is pumped back.
Back, okay.
So it does recycle through. We would just, the current water flows that direction right in that area. So it would just, I would assume it would then be just pumped directly into the current flow of water up to the front, the ponds in the front at McCollum Lake Road at the entrance, and then into the current system.
Okay, so you really don't have that far to go with this from the well, as long as you connect. Okay,
Yeah.
that was my own concern, to see if we were doing it the best way, so. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
One more thing. It was a great weekend in McHenry, by the way. So thank you, everyone. Seriously, thank you. Police department did a great job. It was a great weekend.
Thank you. All right, any other discussion on this item? Where do other council members feel like Alderman
One.
Glab?
So, yeah,
And Alderman Glab, just to touch on that,
So-
everything would be located within the easement too. So it's front to back property, the well would be located, and all the piping and the electric would all be in the easement.
And zero compensation, is that correct? Correct. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, thank you for coming, appreciate it. Discussion item 6B, presentation and discussion of the proposed 24-25 fiscal year budget for the following funds: General Fund, General Operating Department, Recreation Center Fund, Water Fund, Sewer Fund, and Utility Fund. The City Administrator, along with Carolyn, our Director of Finance, will go ahead and present this budget.
Hello and good evening, everyone. Does this work? All right. So I was blessed this morning realizing that I have laryngitis for the first time in 15 years, so I'm going to do my best to get through this presentation tonight. Carolyn is here to support me in spirit and in fact. So thank you, everyone, for your time this evening and the ability to talk to you a little bit about our municipal budget. First of all, I just want to thank the staff. As everyone here is aware, I've been with the city for about 2 months now, so the budget process for me was a real big learning experience. I had the opportunity to sit down with each of the department directors and really go through line by line each of their budgets, which was very informative for me, and I very much appreciate the time and effort that they all put in. I've been very impressed so far with the staff and how much care they put into the budget and how diligent they are throughout the year in making sure that they stay within their budget line items and making sure that they are being fiscally responsible on behalf of the city and its residents. So with that, here goes. Tonight's meeting is primarily looking at the general fund. And for those of you who are not aware, this is a very high-level refresher. It's the primary operating fund for the city. So all of the operating departments are included in that general fund other than the IT department. We will talk a little bit about the IT department tonight, though, because all of the operating departments do pay in for their use of those IT services. We'll also be taking a look at the Recreation Center Fund tonight, as well as the Water and Sewer Fund. There are a lot of other funds in the city budget, but we're not talking about those tonight. Those will not be our focus. We'll be back here on April 1st to talk about the rest of them, including IT and the rest that you see here. There's a long list of them, but more to come on April 1st for that. All right, for tonight, we are, again, going to be taking a look at the general fund. First, we're going to go through a very high-level review of how the current fiscal year is going and how we anticipate that we will end the year. We'll talk a little bit about the general fund balance, always a question at the end of the year. And then we'll dive into the 2024 and 25 budget. Again, the city's fiscal year begins May 1st, so we're straddling the calendar year, which is always an interesting experience. So we're looking at the general fund, again, the rec center, the water and sewer fund, and then we'll talk a little bit about capital projects at the end of the presentation. This is the highlight sheet. So don't ask too many questions right now because all of the information that you want is coming up in the following slides. This is really just a high-level recap in terms of what we're going to be talking about. So for 23-24, for this current fiscal year, we are estimating the revenues to be at 4.8% higher than what was budgeted. And then the estimated year-end expenditures are about 6.9% less than what was budgeted. So you'll see that reflected in our fund balance as well. We did very, very well from a financial perspective this year. And there are a lot of reasons for that, obviously, that we'll go into here shortly. Per our policy, per the city's policy, we need 120 days to be able to run the city for the general fund balance. We have achieved that and more, as we will discuss here shortly. Going into this upcoming fiscal year, the operating budget that we will be presenting this evening is a balanced budget. So our revenues outstrip our expenditures budget by about $850,000. So that puts us in a positive position to just make sure we can weather any storms that may be coming. We are looking for the revenues for the general fund to increase by about 5% year over year. And then we are able to, through this budget, fund about $3.2 million in street work that will be in the upcoming year. So that's pretty exciting. Over the last couple of years, that means we will have done over $6 million in road work. Again, I am new to the city, but from what I understand, this is a new experience to be able to fund that level of street work, and I credit the city council and the staff with making sure that the city is able to do that work and keep up with that. You will see we are recommending 5% increases for both water and sewer, but as we'll talk about here shortly, the operating expenses for both of those areas are increasing, so that's just purely like for like. And again, the capital that we'll talk about at the end, we'll talk a little bit about the funding sources for capital for the city. Over the past couple of years, the new utility taxes that were put in place are really going to make a big, big difference in the city's ability to fund capital going forward. All right, let's talk 23-24 general fund. All right, so just as a reminder, the revenues for the general fund are primarily property tax driven, as well as sales tax, state income tax, video gaming. There's a lot of various revenues that go in, but really those are the largest categories. And in terms of the expenditures, personnel always is by far the most significant chunk of the budget. And so you'll see that reflected here. Obviously, then there's also supplies, program costs, other things, and then the capital, as well as transfers from fund to fund. As we're going through this presentation tonight, we're primarily focusing on page 22 in the packet, was distributed last week. So the categories that we're looking at right now are these two that are highlighted here, which are the budget and estimated numbers for 23-24, and revenues is what we're talking about first. Overall, as I mentioned, we're going to be hopefully at about 5% higher than budget, and that's due to a number of factors. But one of the things we wanted to point out that we are seeing, so we've got the ups and the downs here. I'm trying to make it visually easy for everyone to tell what's happening here, right? So in terms of the sales taxes, coming out of the pandemic, sales taxes have been really, really historically high over the past couple of years. We knew it had to come to an end at some point, the astronomic growth there. So for the next for this fiscal year, we've started to see those sales taxes start to level out a bit, and you'll see that reflected in Carolyn's predictions for the upcoming fiscal year as well. In terms of taxes that have increased, or revenues that have increased, excuse me, the state income tax is up video gaming. We have a lot of our services. You'll see, and again, this is very high level, and when we get into the operating budgets, we'll talk a little bit about why you see some of these things. For example, the reimbursements. There was a renegotiation of our contract with the high school, I believe, for the community service officers. So you'll see those reimbursements are up significantly. It's that and 911 funds and some other things. So the biggest one here, you see the interest income is up by 141%. And so that begs the question, of course. As you all know and have seen in your own personal bank accounts, hopefully, interest rates are up. And so that's a big part of this explanation. Additionally, we have a significant general fund balance that we are accruing interest on. And so that's really the biggest part of that equation. In terms of expenditures for 23-24, budget versus estimated, again, here's just the highlight of where we are on page 22. Overall, expenditures are about 6.9% lower than what we anticipated to see at year-end 23-24. Capital is coming in at about 19% lower. We've talked a lot about vehicles over the past couple of years and our difficulty in getting those vehicles, and so that's primarily due to that issue. So that expense will be carried over. Personnel costs are coming in about 5.4% lower. We had some positions that went unfilled for a good portion of the year. We have filled some of those positions and are anticipating filling the remainder of them here shortly. So again, that's just a savings that we experienced, but that should not continue into next year. Contractual costs look about 12%, 13% lower, but that's just because we have some projects that are ongoing, including the comprehensive plan and engineering for streets. And so you'll see those again in the upcoming budget year. And then we see the supply costs are down by 11% almost, just because gas prices primarily have gone down so dramatically. And just a reminder, of course, our fiscal year does not end until April 30th. So these are all estimates at this point, but Carolyn does a lot of work to make sure that they are as close as they can be. So these numbers may move a little bit before the audit, but we're feeling pretty confident about where we are right now for the end of the fiscal year. All right. Any questions about our current year? No? All right. Keep rolling. All right. So in terms of the general fund balance, again, these highlighted green cells are what we're looking at here. We anticipated, so in 23-24, the beginning balance was about $17.7 million. And we anticipated using some of those reserves in fiscal year 23-24 and anticipated an ending balance of $15.6 million. Instead, as we talked about, our expenses were lower and our revenues were higher. So we are now anticipating that the general fund balance at the end of this fiscal year will be about $19.2 million. That sounds like a lot of money, but it's not. So as we talk about down here below, we talked earlier about the 120-day balance policy. So that represents about 10.1 million of that 19. We also have about 3.7 set aside that came in from ARPA funding from the federal government. And that is set aside, though, for the Route 31 project. We don't anticipate needing that money probably until 2025 or 2026, depending on IDOT's schedule. But that's in our accounts, and so you saw that reflected, obviously, in the interest that we accrued. We've got about 1.5 million in 911 grant funds in our accounts. You'll see later a big portion of that is going to be used to offset expenses this year. But again, it's in our accounts and it's accruing interest. So that's a positive thing. We've got about $170,000 in asset seizure funds. Those are targeted for public safety, so that's not fund money. We can't spend that either. And that leaves us with about $3.7 million that we're going to have to, the city council going to have to determine sort of what the best course of action is to use that money for. We talked a little bit about the fund balance policy earlier. A lot of that policy essentially was to ensure that we had money for capital. So in the past, my understanding is that if there was money left over at the end of the fiscal year in general fund balance, we immediately moved that over into one of the capital funds. We now have those utility taxes that are designated for funding funding those capital projects. And so, we've talked a little bit as staff about potentially bringing that fund balance policy back to the city council right around the time of the audit later in the year, just to make sure that that we have the proper direction from the city council in terms of what to do with that funding when we find ourselves in a positive position for general fund balance. Again, we're talking a lot about a lot of projects that have to happen, downtown development, the Riverwalk, a lot of other things. And so when we look at that $3.7 million, that's where that money would come from. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we continue to have those discussions as well. Any questions about that? All right. Let's talk 24-25. All right, so now we are looking at budget to budget. This fiscal year versus next fiscal year. So those are the highlighted cells there. Our general fund revenues, we believe are projected to be about 4.6% higher year over year than they were this year. Again, that's determined by a number of factors, but obviously we saw those revenues come in above budget, and so Carolyn has conservatively adjusted that for this year's budget as well. We wanted to point out as well, the City Council opted to not increase the property tax levy for this fiscal year. And so we would have seen the property tax revenue kind of stay static, but staff wanted to make sure that that was a realistic number because nobody collects 100% of their property taxes. So we've adjusted that to a more realistic number, so to about 99% is the projected collection rate for property taxes. So you'll see that that property tax revenue decrease by about 0.8%. It's not a big number, but it does give a more realistic picture of where we anticipate that we will be for property taxes. As you see there, the state sales tax, we're anticipating that one is going to be a little bit static as well and potentially go down a little bit just based on what we've seen. The local sales tax we're anticipating is going to go up by $8,000. So we'll see how dead on Carolyn's predictions are. Is that the IML number? That's income tax. All right. So this next number, the state income tax number, comes directly from the Illinois Municipal League. We use their predictions every year, so they're anticipating that the income tax is going to go up by 10%. As everyone knows or should know, minimum wage is increasing, and unemployment's very low. So that's where that number ties in. Video gaming continues to be a reliable source of revenue. Charges for services, again, we'll talk about some of that information in the departmental discussion here in a minute. And then our interest income, where we came in so far over budget that we are ratcheting up that budget number for the upcoming fiscal year as well. All right, any questions there? All right, must be doing a really good job. No questions.
Have we looked at, as far as the revenue that we get coming in from what's the word I want, for the marijuana infirmary or whatever?
The dispensary?
Dispensary.
We have looked at that a little bit. Carolyn can.
So actually, we have not received any as of yet. So it's usually 3 months or so behind. So I have no idea what that would be right now.
Okay, so that's going to be, you think by the time we talk about it, April 1st, are we going to have some kind of an idea or not at all? Or are we going to at least come up with something?
I think as of right now, it would be a pure guess what it would be because every neighboring community is seeing a decrease in what they're receiving because of all of them opening. So I'm hopeful that we will start getting in from the business, that would have some idea.
Well, if nothing else, I think we need to have discussions later on sometimes as far as where we're going to earmark that money.
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think universally, communities that had dispensaries kind of at the beginning, we're seeing these significant cash windfalls. But I think that as Carolyn said, as more of them open, there's just a natural dilution that happens. And so I think, we'll have to wait and see, but there's a good possibility that that it's not going to be the cash cow that we were kind of all hoping that it might be. So.
Another thing too is if we've looked real closely at sales tax, are we actually, and I don't know how we could gauge it as far as, you know, with all the online sales and everything else, are we collecting our due amounts?
It sure looks like we are. I mean, over the years when they started the new law of collecting for communities, we did see a large increase in sales tax. So I do believe we are.
I mean, are we looking at like the percentage of the increase that we're getting every year versus, I'm sure there's something out there that says the growing percentage of online sales and what it is, and at least have some kind of a comparison.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're pretty close to what the online sales increase were. Our sales tax have gone up pretty close to that amount.
If that trend continues, you know,
Yes.
we're going to be looking at less and less sales tax that we
Yes.
garner local, you know, from local sales.
Yeah, and since you're on sales tax, another thing to bring up is if the grocery tax is eliminated by the state, that could be a significant loss for the city. So that will be something we will have to address if that goes through, of what we will do.
Well, maybe we've just found where we're going to get our dispensary money too.
That may be.
All right, now we get into the expenditure side of the house. The proposed operating expenditures year over year are projected to increase by about 3.4%. As I mentioned earlier, obviously our people are our most important and most expensive asset. So some of that just goes to standard salary increases for our bargaining units as well as our non-bargaining unit folks. The police pension contribution is going up, but that's determined by actuaries, so we don't really have control over that one. We only have one new position that's requested through the fiscal year 24-25 budget, and that is one additional part-time FOIA officer. The police department is definitely anticipating that we will see an increase in FOIA requests once the body-worn cameras go in later this year. So that's just there to satisfy that need. This is offset a little bit by decreases to insurance. We were surprised that our insurance rates did not increase to the level that we thought they were going to. I believe Carolyn budgeted 10% for this past fiscal year, and they only increased by 3%. So that's good news. So that ends our personnel at about 1.7% up. Our contractual costs are about 11% higher. If you flip to page 11 of your handout, we can go over what that is when we get to the discussion on operations here shortly. Our supply costs are going up by about 0.6%. It's minimal, but as everyone knows, obviously with inflation continuing, but hopefully slowing, we're going to continue to see those higher prices. And then, as I mentioned earlier, all of the operating departments do pay into our IT fund. Again, we'll talk about IT later, but just as a heads up, you'll see that in each of the operating departments, those numbers are increasing, those transfers to the IT fund. All right. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the budget is balanced for 24-25 to the tune of about $850,000. So kudos to the staff and Carolyn for that. All right, do you have questions right now on a high level about the expenditures? No? All right, so now we'll dive into the operating departments. And obviously all of the department directors are here to answer any specific questions that may arise. So just as a reminder, the operating departments that are where we're going to talk about tonight includes all the personnel, contractual supplies, every expense that we accrue, other than the rec center, the water division, sewer, utilities, and IT. As we talked about, there's a full process that we go through in the development of our budget. And again, I sat down with each of the department directors to go over things line by line. And then, obviously, then we pull it all together and it comes to the City Council for discussion. All right, so as we talked about, personnel costs are going up by about 1.7%. There's all of the things that I mentioned previously. Contractual expenses are higher, again, by that $400,000. That's primarily due to the body cameras and the in-car cameras that are going to go along with that, as well as a road condition survey that's coming in to the tune of about $90,000. That's rolled into the budget there. As we talked about, supply costs and IT, so that's all. So those are like the big picture items, and then we'll go into each of the departments here. General administration, overall, we went down a little bit just due to the list of items there, and then obviously IT goes up a little bit. There's not a whole heck of a lot in the administration budget, but that is where if any of the city council needs to come in and make copies, that budget is rolled into that one as well. So. For community development, as I mentioned previously, the comprehensive plan is continuing into the upcoming fiscal year, and there's also $200,000 in there for a unified development ordinance. And Ross has some background on that if anybody has any questions. We'll roll through this. No? All right. And then for HR, you will see a decrease in that budget there just because the last year's budget had the recruitment for the city administrator, and hopefully I'm not going anywhere. So we did not budget for that again for the upcoming fiscal year. For economic development, we've got about $20,000 that's targeted to support marketing and tourism efforts there. I know that's going to be a significant focus of Doug and his team as we go into the upcoming year. As I mentioned, the police department, we've got the body cams. Hopefully, we have budgeted about $115,000 in grant revenue to offset that. So you'll see the 260 in the expenses and then 115 in the revenues there for that project. And then we've got about $50,000 that's anticipated to come out of the asset seizure funding to put a fence around our new fueling station that we will talk about later on this evening. In terms of the dispatch center, as I mentioned earlier, we do have that money sitting in the general fund. The partners of NERCOM have voted to use $700,000 to offset the personnel costs for the dispatchers, which is going to be a benefit certainly to the city of McHenry as well as all of the other partners of the dispatch center. We've got the public works, as I mentioned earlier, there's a road condition survey in there for about $90,000. And then you'll also see $160,000, give or take, for the Oakwood Drive Bridge rehab. The engineering is continuing into the upcoming fiscal year. For Parks and Rec, you will see an increase in the dues to the Special Recreation Association to the tune of about $26,000. And then there are some additional monies in here for not only seasonal salaries, because obviously those are folks that are affected by the minimum wage increase, but also the Parks and Rec Department has seen such high enrollment in a lot of their programming that they need to add staff and add supplies, but there is an offsetting revenue for that as well. And then there's about 3 basketball courts that are slated for renovation in 24-25 for about $40,000. For parks maintenance, there's about $58,000 in there that you'll see an increase for general maintenance, not only general maintenance, but also the Peterson Farm and some additional downtown signage. All right, I'm going to leave it on this page in case anybody has questions about any of the items that I just mentioned. Going once, going twice. All right. All right, now we're going to dive a little bit into the Recreation Center budget, as I mentioned. As everyone here is aware, the Rec Center opened in 2016, so this upcoming fiscal year will be the 6th budget year. It's my understanding that from the very beginning, this was intended to be a self-supporting operation. And that we were hopeful that the membership revenue that was coming in would be enough to support not only the operations of the rec center, but also to pay that annual debt service that the city is still paying for the construction of the rec center. The first couple of years went really well, and then that goal was achieved, and then the pandemic came along and dramatically changed that picture for the rec center, unfortunately, and we are still fighting to make our way back. So I know Bill and his staff have been working very hard to make adjustments to operations, to promote the rec center, bring in more members, and do that sort of work. But again, it's not working to the degree we need it to yet. So we just wanted to make sure that the city council is aware sort of where the rec center is. For fiscal year 23-24, we saw the revenues come in about 0.4% over budget, which is a positive thing, obviously. But that made the fact that then there was still a general fund transfer of $130,000 required, though, to cover the operational expenses for the rec center. For 24-25, we are proposing that the revenue will be $71,000 or 9% higher budget year to budget year. But again, we've increased the general fund transfer from 130 to 150 year over year to make sure that we have enough funding to maintain operations there. The operating expenses for fiscal year 24-25 are about 7%, almost 8% higher year over year. And so things are just continuing to get more and more expensive. And so we just wanted to provide you this high-level update. I'm sure there will be some additional information forthcoming about the rec center over the next few months as we kind of talk through some of this. But just wanted to make sure that the City Council is aware of where we are today. And again, Bill and his staff are working very, very hard to make sure that we are progressing. But just wanted to make sure that we were able to have that discussion with you this evening. So, questions about that? Not right now. Okay. All right. Last fund of the evening, water and sewer. As we're hopefully all aware here, water and sewer it's an enterprise fund. So it's hopefully a self-supporting fund where we sell water and sewer services, and that is how we pay for the expenses, including the capital of the many pieces of equipment that it takes to run a water and sewer department. We adjust annually the water and sewer rates just based on the operations. And the base fees were last updated in 2021. And last year, the water rates went down by 17 cents, and sewer rates went up by 17 cents. So we were hopeful, I guess, that the residents would be even Steven for last year. Year over year, we are expecting the water division expenditures to increase by about 3.5%, and sewer to go up $118,000. And so, we just as things progress, right? People get paid more, and things get more expensive, and there's been a lot of inflation over the past few years, in fact. So again, in order to make sure that we have adequate funding for those operational expenses, staff is recommending a 5% increase to both water and sewer for fiscal year 24-25. This will be coming back before the City Council for discussion and approval later in the year, but just wanted to make sure that we call that out as part of this budget discussion as well. For the utility division, however, expenditures are proposed to decrease by $28,000. So there's some positive news there, and that's just related to someone's insurance changing. So. All right. In terms of capital for water and sewer, we just wanted to point out, so there's three funding sources essentially for capital for water and sewer. We've got the water capital fees, sewer capital fees, as well as a reserve balance of about $3.5 million right now. The projects that are planned and anticipated for 24-25 are listed out here below. You will see that obviously that total is more than the $1 million and change that we generate from those capital fees, and so the balance of that will come out of the water sewer fund balance. So obviously Steve is here and delighted to talk about any of these capital projects. Should you have any questions?
one thing I want to bring up about the 5%, and this is more for, in case it hits an article in the paper, and the fact that that 5% is only on the usage of the water and the sewer, and it does not affect the debt service, which is what would you say is on the average bill, percentage-wise?
Well, I could say percentage-wise, there's a couple of them on there. Let's get the total. It's like, what, 35 and 6 approximately, or?
40, it's over 40 with the capital fees that are on there.
Just so that people don't figure it's 5% more on their entire bill.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
that we're looking at.
On the,
I think it just food for thought.
Yep. Very good point. You can see, obviously, the biggest project here is the water tower for repainting. So that one's about $800,000. So that'll be a big one. And then the Kane Street water main replacement, that's the one that goes under the train tracks. So we'll be talking a little more about that as the year goes on as well. Other questions there?
Just one quick question for Steve, if I can. The PFAS conversation we were having in the previous couple of meetings around that, do we anticipate that we would see anything 24, 25 in those regulations, or do you think it'll be pushed out farther than that?
Right now, I'm not seeing anything that's coming down that it's going to be in 24, 25. So I would anticipate maybe a year from now we're having the conversation of where we're at with that.
But we should probably be anticipating something coming down that pipe.
I would anticipate something coming, yes.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out that this budget, I don't believe it contemplates any revenue that we would be getting from that settlement, the PFAS settlement. So that is a source of funding potentially for any mandates that may come down. All right. Talk a little bit about general fund capital. The capital investment for this upcoming budget year is budgeted to be over $5.2 million, which is a lot of money, and we can get a lot of things done for that. So that includes $3.2 million in the overall road program. Again, this does not include all those capital projects we just talked about in water and sewer. And then there will be some additional capital projects funded through the IT fund, developer donations, the TIF funds. So that those conversations will be saved for our next couple of meetings. So, as I mentioned previously, changes to the funding mechanisms for capital were made during 2023 with the new utility taxes. So those are going to be incredibly helpful and give us a consistent funding source for capital going forward. Right now, we now have, so there's the Capital Asset Maintenance and Replacement Projects Fund, which is going to come out of the Electric Utility ComEd Fund. And then any new capital projects be funded then through the revenues that we'll be getting through that NICOR tax. Once those are up and running and fully funded, there's a couple of projects that are still hanging around in the capital improvements and equipment funds, but those funds are going to roll off. And then again, we'll have to revisit the fund balance policy just to make sure that we have proper direction in terms of where funding would kind of channel through. You will see some of these projects are re-budget from the current fiscal year. And so these are coming out of the administration budget. This is general fund balance projects. South Main Street parking lot design, the streetscape for Riverside and sidewalk engineering for Riverside, Bull Valley Road. We've got the city entrance signs and a couple of vehicles that we'll be repurposing those funds in the upcoming fiscal year to complete those projects. Any questions there? Yeah.
Is the NICOR tax, has that started already, or is that still to kick in at a later date?
It has started, but I believe that we only have a couple of months showing so far.
Okay.
It started on June 1st.
Okay.
So.
Of 23.
Of 23, correct.
Okay. And then electric one, did that start?
The previous June.
Previous June. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we do have a full year of the ComEd, but not yet for NICOR. All right, and again, as I mentioned, so these are in the older funds that will be rolling off. We just have a couple of projects that have been rebudgeted, license plate readers for the police department and the design for Venice Avenue. All right, so here is the capital asset maintenance and replacement fund project. So again, these are the items that will be funded through those utility taxes. We've got some improvements to the skate park, a number of vehicles, including police patrol vehicles and some other things, and then there's a couple of parking lot projects and street lights that we're going to be doing as well. Any questions on any of those items? All right, and then in terms of our street program for this upcoming year, this is a list of the items that are targeted. They're not specific streets, obviously, but this is you can see all the various funding mechanisms by which our streets program is funded, including MFT, local MFT, and the township road and bridge funds. Any questions on any of those?
Steve, have you finalized the list of streets that are going to be repaved this year? And I read the packet, and it looks like Kensington is in fact included. Is that correct?
It is included in the agenda supplement for tonight for you guys to vote on.
Okay, perfect. So the link to look at the streets by year, is that updated as accurately as you can right now?
I believe this year's is correct. For the upcoming road program, yes.
Perfect.
It should be correct.
Thank you.
All right. All right, and then this is just a snapshot overall view of our capital projects and those funding sources for the upcoming year. And again, that totals out to that $5.2 million. So, all right. Any other questions about capital? Capital? No? No, it's not capital. All right. All right, and then in terms of the next steps for the budget, obviously we are here tonight talking about the general fund. We have the next couple of weeks to make any modifications that the City Council would like to see to the operating budgets. Then you will be getting an updated packet, and then on April 1st we'll be talking through, as I mentioned, all the other funds and any other changes we may want to make. And then the final approval for the City Council will be April 15th. For the budget. So with that, we will entertain any additional questions that anyone may have.
Alderman Santi.
Thank you very much, both Carolyn and Suzanne, for the presentation. The time I spent this week was definitely very educational in regards to understanding more about the IT fund and some of the fines. And some of the numbers that just kind of bounced out at me, which they were able to answer during the one-on-ones. Parks and Rec was key, staffing was key, water and sewer, and also the utility taxes, which I kind of brought up because I wanted to make sure I understood the start date for both of those, because I know one was, when we voted originally on it, one was started immediately, and then we placed one into the to the next fiscal year. But do you have time available if you know, council members want to sit down with you on a one-on-one basis before our next council meeting?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So Carol and I are here to answer any questions you may have. I know obviously we tried to get everybody in advance of this meeting here tonight. Through a number of circumstances, we only had 2 aldermen come in and visit with me and Carolyn, but obviously we are here for you if you have any questions or if you need anything from us. So just let me know.
Alderman Miller.
Well, thank you for your presentation. Welcome aboard to your first budget.
Thank you so much.
I think it was very comprehensive. I appreciate all the work that you and Carolyn do to present to us your thoughts. As the fresh set of eyes on our budget, anything you felt needs more attention than what we all see every day? Because most of us have been through this numerous times, but I often ask a fresh set of eyes with your experience. Did you notice anything out of whack, any anomalies that we need to pay attention to? Or are you comfortable with what you've presented?
Number one, I am comfortable with what I've presented because as I've talked to each of the department directors, at length about each of their budgets. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I was very impressed by the level of professionalism, by the level of attention everyone pays to the budget, the fact that we are so fiscally responsible and we're coming in so far under budget in terms of the expenditures is really impressive, I think. I had a lot of discussions, primarily with the department directors about professional development, because I was taking a look just at what the city had done in the past and what was budgeted, and it's a significant focus of mine, and I think it's really important for staff to kind of get outside their comfort zone, network, meet people from other communities, hear new ideas, and you don't do that if you never leave your office, right? So I've been pushing them to add some additional funding into the budget for those types of items. I will encourage them throughout the year to take advantage of those opportunities as well. In terms of the kind of operating day-to-day of the departments, there was nothing, honestly. I really impressed by how well the budget was put together, and I think everything makes sense just from a fiscal perspective. So,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Bassi.
Director Hobson, have you got a list similar to what we have Public Works with their streets? Do you have a list of what parks, neighborhood parks, you plan on working on for the 24-25 budget?
I do have a list that we've gone through all of our parks this first couple months as we're preparing a budget, particularly with maintenance items. That's really going to be our focus is maintenance items. And so I have a list. It's not in the cleanest form, but we're working on it, put it together that has every park and what we intend to do. I need a little bit of work because we're not going to do every one of these things this year, but prioritizing as we go through. Myself and Superintendent Gorniak went through each park and said, all right, what do we need to take a look at as we walked each park and made a list. Again, prioritizing that from what we want to accomplish this year versus what's next year. We can't do it all in 1 year, but I do have a list as well as a couple of things that we added in terms of the basketball courts that we looked at that are in bad shape, that are in significant need of replacement, more of a capital type item. And those are, that's just to mention those three are, one is at McHenry Shores Park, at East Beach Park, as well as the Kiwanis Top Lot. Those are three that we feel like just need some attention for those.
And I did see that,
facilities.
and I appreciate that. Do you think within the next week or two, you could provide all of us your list in order of priority for the parks?
I could work through that and get that to you, yes.
Great, thank you so much.
Any other questions? Alderman Gleb?
Yeah, on the 130,000 we were talking about as far as movement to the rec center. What fund is that coming out of? The general fund?
Yes.
We're not taking. Why wouldn't we take it out of the Parks and Rec funds?
So the only Parks and Recs money that we have other than general fund is developer donations, which are
Correct. Which could be
typically used
for
for projects, not for operational needs that we have.
Okay, but basically it could be used for paying off part of the debt and use the money that we're paying for the debt for the operational. So you could use it that way.
You could.
Exactly. I just think to some extent, I'd rather, considering we were looking at it being self-sufficient, I would think that we would take it out of the Parks Department rather than taking it out of the general fund, which takes it from other different projects in different locations of the city.
Yeah, well, as Carolyn mentioned, the Parks Department is part of the general fund. They are funded through the general fund. Generally speaking, just from a fiscal perspective, it's not advisable to use one-time funds for recurring needs, right? And so whenever you take, your capital or your fund balance and you use it for operational needs, you're creating a problem that really you're just kind of moving the problem down the line, right? Ultimately, what we want to see is increasing those revenues and decreasing the expenditures so that eventually the rec center can just come to a place where it doesn't need supplementation from the general fund on an annual basis. So we're looking at, and I would say too, we're probably going to be talking a little bit about the rec center over the next few months, just making sure that we kind of have a plan in place for how to make that happen. So more to come. Stay tuned.
I agree. I think to some extent maybe we need to address the rec center a few times through the year because it's been kind of left out there by itself, and all we do is get a report at the end of the year where we're at, and it's not looking good. Not for what it was originally intended, and the way it started before COVID and all that. Got to be something we could do to kickstart it a little bit higher.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's a sweet spot though, right, Bill? I feel like in conversations that I've had with Director Hobson, he's mentioned that there was a period of time where the membership rate was so high at the rec center that there wasn't enough space for all the members to actually be there and use the services and use the facility. So it's again trying to figure out how to maximize those revenues while making the membership experience the best that it can be. So again, we'll be looking at that.
You know, considering we have press here tonight, and she is writing articles about what we're discussing, maybe we sit down with her and really talk up about all the extra space that we have now in the rec center and everything else, and how much more accommodating we could be than at the beginning when things really got packed in there. Anything to get a little extra oomph to get the membership up.
Yep. All right, Janelle, you got any oomph for us? Okay, all right, sounds good.
Any other questions by council? See none. All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you both. All right, moving on to individual action items, 7A, Park Special Use Permit for Private Fireworks. The applicant is here this evening as well. I'm looking for a motion to approve 7A as presented. Alderman Cook.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Second, Alderman Glab.
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion on this item by council? See none. Open up for public comment. For this item, I see none. Sir, would you like to say something? Are you okay? Did you want to?
If you approve it, thank you very much.
All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, council. There you go. It's approved. Have a good evening. Next item on the agenda is 7B, Taylor Place Apartments. Passing an ordinance authorizing the mayor's execution of a development agreement with Taylor Place Apartments, McHenry LLC, for the Taylor Place Apartments multifamily development. Director Palarecki.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the final step that we need to take to approve the Taylor Place Apartments, and basically the redevelopment agreement that's before you tonight is for a reduction in fees based on a usage of water, similar to what we did with Authentics and Fox Meadows. So as I've stated in previous meetings, when it comes to capital development fees, the IEPA uses 100 gallons per day per person to develop their fees. That's like a 1960s and 70s number, where today you're down in, I think, like the 30 gallon per person per day. So if the developer can supply us with past water bills from a similar development from the municipality, we verify that from that municipality. Our staff engineer, Greg Gruen, goes over those numbers and comes up with a recommendation. And ironically, this proposal, what they gave us was a lot lower than what we're suggesting. So we do not want to dip below the base fee that we charged for the other units, basically Authentics and Fox Meadows. So I'm looking for council's approval tonight to enter into this development agreement. It's basically just for the reduction of fees. I don't like using the word reduction because it's a user-based fee. It's not really a reduction.
Thanks, Ross. Looking for a motion to approve 7B as presented. Alderman Miller.
I'll make that motion to approve 7B as presented.
Thank you. Alderman McClatchy for a second. Thank you. Discussion on this item by council. Alderman Gleb.
I just say I wouldn't be in favor of it, but only because I'll vote for it because of the fact that we need to be consistent with the way we handle everybody else. So.
Any other questions, comments? Open up for public comment regarding this item. See none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes. Thank you, council. Next item on the agenda is 7C, is police body worn camera, in-squad car camera system. Chief, go ahead and present this item.
Thank you, Mayor. As council knows, multiple years ago, the state of Illinois passed the Officer Body Worn Camera Act, which requires municipalities of a population of our size to implement a body worn camera program no later than January 1st, 2025. Over the last several years, staff has
has worked to start our research to figure out which direction we wanted to go in implementing this program. During this current fiscal year, we established an internal committee to examine multiple different vendors and products, which brought us to where we are here tonight, and we are presenting to you a 5 agreement with Axon Incorporated for the purchase and the use of body-worn cameras and the replacement of our in-squad cameras for an amount not to exceed $808,790.88 over the next 5-year period. And we're available to answer any questions you might have. I also have a representative from Axon, our sales rep here, David, and he's available to answer any questions you might have as well.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Looking for a motion to approve 7C as presented. Alderman McClatchy.
I'll make that motion.
And then Alderwoman Miller for a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion by council. Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Yeah, Chief, I'm just curious, how do these cameras work? Does it go to a SD card, or is it a Wi-Fi live thing?
It's a complete cloud-based system, so the squad cars. So they do store the data locally, and then they remotely upload the data to cloud-based storage platform, an evidence-based cloud-based storage platform that can then be accessed through our evidence custodian to redact and make copies to be used at the end of the week.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Alderman Cliff.
Chief, are you using license readers right now? I mean, I know it's not with the cameras, but are you using license readers?
We have fixed license plate reader cameras in town on the 120 bridge. Soon to have a couple on the Bull Valley Road bridge or close to that. But no, we do not have license plate readers right now in our squad cars.
Okay, thanks.
Alderman Bassey.
Chief, you are really good at finding grant money. We all know that. When do you think that we will, well, first of all, do you believe that your grant request will be approved? When do you think it'll be the check cut for the city? And are there any other sources of grants for this? Because you would know.
So there is a grant opportunity. I'd love to tell you that I had the exact date. I don't, because it's the state of Illinois. There is a camera grant that is supposed to be coming out. They publicized and told us that the information and the application process would start in February. I know this won't shock you that the state of Illinois, I know we're in March, but they must have forgot because they haven't sent it to us yet. But the first step for us is once we approve and enter into an agreement and for the purchase of the equipment, then we're eligible to apply for the grant. So we have to actually commit to the purchase, and then we're eligible to apply for that on the back end. And when Suzanne gave the budget presentation to you, it included the funds that we think that we're going to receive conservative number of what we're going to receive for the actual equipment, and then we will be able to recoup an annual reoccurring storage fee, cloud storage fee cost as well, and I'm highly confident that we will get that money. I can't give you a 100% guarantee, but the state's been so aggressive that this is what we would call an unfunded mandate, right? So they had to provide some money and some relief for us to move forward, not just us, but every municipality in Illinois. And so I do not know of a current municipality who applied for the paperwork correctly that has been denied that grant money thus far, that has already taken those steps.
Okay, thank you. And I have two other real quick questions. What is the life expectancy of the actual body camera? Will they be, is it at least the 5 years that we've got the agreement?
So if I'm wrong, you'll have to correct me on the state, but the equipment should actually, it'll be replaced multiple times through that 5 years, and that's all part of the agreement. So we're paying for the equipment up front, but at the 2.5 year mark, there'll be a refresh on equipment, and then I believe right around the 5 year mark before we expire, we'll probably get a second refresh. And then we'll have a decision on whether or not we want to continue with that product beyond that. But we will get new equipment 2 times during the term of the 5 years on top of the initial issuance.
And that's all factored into
That is all included in the price and the cost.
Okay,
correct.
and how often do you have system upgrades? Because as I was reading the packets.
You want to come up, David? Maybe you can answer that question first.
Probably nobody wants to know this but me.
Could you do, there's a red button, if you could
upgrades.
push that, and then just tell me your name really quick, too.
Yeah, David Artham, based in Chicago as well.
I'm just wondering how frequently there's system upgrades.
The back-end system for managing, it's continuous, so 24/7. Everything's cloud-based, so I'd say in terms of service time and everything running, everything's accessible at any point and really any location with an internet connection as well.
And okay, yeah, I was looking at my. I'm good.
Great.
Thank you.
Then I heard one question on the cameras, just to distinct too, the fleet in-car systems are every 5 years. Body cameras are going to be a little bit shorter, so we bake those refresh cadences in as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Alderman Miller?
Thank you. Chief, thank you for doing the field testing. I thought the responses were interesting, that there was quite a difference between the Utility Inc. and the Axon. Was there anything in particular that made Axon better?
Well, there was multiple factors, but some of the things that we really noticed was battery life was one of them. In order for things to work, and we're required to make sure they work, and even our squad cameras now, we audit those regularly to make sure that they're working and the officers are turning on the mics. But battery life is really important. We need to know that when that officer starts a shift, that the last thing they're worried about is whether or not the battery's going to fail, and then the recording's not going to happen, which is what the law requires us to do. And so, hands down, Axon's battery life on their equipment was superior. The back end service from the IT perspective of how that data is uploaded, stored, then processed, parsed out, redacted when needed, and then provided to the right people. It was a far superior product too than anything else that we had looked at as well.
Interesting that you mentioned batteries. You can have the best technology in the world, and if the battery fails, it doesn't work. And we often forget that fact, that it's all still relying on the power that you provide. So interesting that that was a most important decision. So thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
David, A-R-T-H. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other questions? See none? Open up for public comment. See none? Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda is 7D, is the 2024 Road Resurfacing Program. Director Works, floor is yours.
Before you guys is the agenda supplement for our 2024 road program, which came in at just over $2.1 million. As you recall, you approved Kensington as an alternate. That is included in the $2.1 million. So if you approve that, we will also need a motion to approve us to use MFT funds as part of for IDOT, for resolution with IDOT. And also in there is our 10% contingency for any issues that may arise during construction. But the anticipated cost was 2.6 million, and it came in at 2.1. So we got some good numbers there, so I'm hoping you'll approve it.
Discussion?
Any discussion?
Questions?
Alderman Cook?
Is there any room for any adding on to these roads, you know?
I would say no, we'd have to run a separate program. Any of the extra money, if that's left in the MFT, rolls over. So as you see the funding breakdown, like we have the local funds and our road and bridge funds come out of this, so we take that out of there first, and then we use MFT funds. So anything extra for MFT will roll over for next year to possibly give us a bigger pot to go into next year.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Alderman Miller, go ahead.
Director Wirtz, how many miles are we doing?
About 7.
So our cost has gone down?
This year, our pricing was a little bit better than last year, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman Santee?
We did 5.6 the previous year?
I thought it was a little more than that. I thought it was closer to 6 miles or just over 6 miles.
Okay, so we're getting, definitely with Alderwoman Miller, we're getting a little bit more bang for the buck. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments by council? Looking for a motion to approve 7D as presented. Alderman Miller?
I'll make that motion to approve our road resurfacing program as presented.
Alderman Glad?
Yeah, second.
Thank you. Any public comment regarding this item? Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, council.
We also need a motion to approve the IDOT resolution to use MFT funds.
That was in
I think we have to have a separate motion for that.
why is that? I mean.
That's what I thought.
That's how it reads in 7D. Right?
Okay.
No.
And approve it.
What do you mean no?
It's actually, staff also recommends a second one in the actual packet. I don't know what the agenda says, but.
Yeah, but I think it could be one
The
motion.
first recommendation is individual, the second one looks like it is a separate to.
I thought legally we had to approve a second motion for the resolution.
Okay, so we're gonna break this into two. Start over. We use dollars. The proposed motion is as it reads in D, but if we want to break it into two, my understanding, the first contract is going to be for $2,122,577.80. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the second motion would be for the 1.5. Correct. I don't know if that's the way they want to do it. Let's have a first motion and stop before and.
Okay.
Just read it. And that's
All right, sounds good.
So we'll redo the first motion just to be clear on dollars, okay?
All right, so I am looking for a motion. So I'm looking for a motion for 7D to award the 2024 road program to Peter Baker and Son Company of Lake Bluff, Illinois, in the amount of $1,838,817.24 for the base bid, and accept the alternate bid of $283,760.56 for a contract total of $2,122,577.80.
And that was my intent of my motion.
Thank you. Second, Alderman Glad?
Yes. Second.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. I'm looking for a motion to approve 7D, where the second half of it is approve a construction contingency in the amount of 10% of the awarded contract price to $212,257.78, and to pass an IDOT resolution for maintenance authorizing the use of $1.5 million of state motor fuel tax funds to the project. Looking for a motion, Alderman Strack?
So moved.
Second, Alderman Bassi?
Second.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda is 7E is a fueling station. Director Works, Chief, you.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Warch and I are here for council tonight asking for authorization for the mayor to enter into a 5-year agreement with Relodyne Fueling Company and authorizing also city administrator to be able to sign an annually occurring 1-year fuel pricing contract with Relodyne for each calendar year moving forward. As a little bit of background, staff has started the process back in 2020 of exploring for a new fueling station option owned by the city. As you know, we get our fuel from an independent fueling station on Main Street. We've had reliability and access issues to that station for a while. And in 2022, we brought this topic to council, at which time you guys authorized us to for engineering plans to build one at our Public Works facility. So we did complete those plans, which then allowed us to get a little bit better firm pricing and what that would cost. And the pricing came in between $400,000 and $450,000 for that fueling station. There's no money for that. And so that hadn't been funded through our capital investment plan for the last year and a half, even though it was identified, but we just didn't have the funding for that. So Director Wirch and I kind of went back to the table about 6 or 7 months ago to discuss what our options would be. We were able to identify a local fueling company that provides fueling opportunities for municipalities in our region. Two of the more close ones for reference are the Village of Algonquin and the Village of Cary. And basically it's an agreement where they will install all of the equipment, the fuel tanks, and provide us fueling those locations, the equipment at no cost, and we've agreed to buy the fuel through them. And so before you tonight are those two different agreements, one being for the 5-year agreement for the installation of the equipment at no cost to us, and then the ongoing agreement of what we would pay for fuel for that calendar year. And we're here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Alderman Bassey?
Thank you. This is really great. Chief, quick question as I'm reading this. Are you expecting an annual savings of $50,000 a year?
Yeah, so based on what we were paying for fuel prices in calendar year 2023 compared to the fueling price contract that's before you tonight for calendar year 2024, we would realize a savings of approximately $50,000 based on our gallon per consumption for the previous calendar year.
Good job. And I saw that there could be potential consequences if you don't hit the 85% of the minimum agreement. Do you feel that that is accurate, what you are listing as your?
Yeah, Director Works built in a kind of a fail-safe. I think even the tanks were designed based on what and our fuel consumption at 90% or 85% anyway. So we don't have any risk there at all of not meeting that goal.
Okay, great. I think this is a wonderful idea. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman Gleb?
Yeah, the only thing I'm a little concerned at, if we see a big drop in gas prices down the road, which could happen if we ever, depending on how the elections go and whether or not they move forward with opening up the pipelines again, that could significantly lower the gas prices. And would we really see a savings then?
I guess later, if it happened later in the year, I guess we might see less of a savings, but then we'd see the savings the following year when the pricing came in for the next year, because they base the pricing on, on what they're paying for fuel also.
Yeah, the pricing goes down, the pricing back to us will adjust too. And that pricing changes at a minimum annually in January 1st every year. So if the elections come in November and fuel pricing goes down, the pricing they give us that takes effect January 1st, 2025, and that contract would go to the city administrator, it would have that reflective cost savings in addition to what 2024's numbers were.
Okay, thank you. I want to say that probably the biggest, besides the savings there, which will pay for the installation, the amount of time that's saved of everybody running around for gas will be tremendous, so that's great.
Any other questions, comments? See none?
Just the only other thing I would add is that we will be coming back to council after May 1, as you saw in the budget presentation. We are going to fence this in for security reasons, but that's an allowable expense from police seizure funds, and we do have the funding for that mechanism, so that's why we put it in the budget. It'll just be a transfer from the seizure fund back into the general fund to cover that. And we will have, probably just for disclosure, we will have the best competitive quote we can get on that, because we do have a problem with getting competitive bids and fence companies that want to pay prevailing wage. So that's coming back to you after May 1.
Thanks, Chief. Looking for a motion to approve 7E as presented. Alderman Strack.
So moved.
Alderman Santee.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Ross, go ahead.
Just one thing real quick too. This will require conditional use permit through, for bulk storage of fuel. So that will be coming before the Planning and Zoning Department or committee on April 15th, and then May 1st for you guys to for an approval. Just so you know that in the past when we've had to have conditional use permits on city properties, we really haven't done it. This was before my time. So I want to make sure that council is aware that we will be bringing this back. The approval of this will allow Public Works and the chief to get things rolling and move forward. But then obviously we will have to approve that conditional use permit. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware so that when it comes before you again, through my department, you're not confused.
You're going to see it 2 more times. So you approved it tonight, and hopefully we'll again.
All right. Any questions, comments? Any public comment? All right, clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Thank you, Council. Staff reports. Is there any staff reports besides Bill Hobson giving his? No. I just want to say to the whole Parks Department, Public Works, the Police Department, but huge props to Bill Hobson and his team, Pat Gorniak, and the entire Parks Department for putting this all together. Great job. I think everyone enjoyed it for the most part. Maybe not the next day, but everyone enjoyed it. So great job. Great job. So other than that, that's all I got. Any city council comments? Alderman Santee?
I'll just reiterate what the mayor said. It was excellent presentation down there at Miller Point, and what I noticed kind of a little bit unique is that visitors didn't necessarily have to go to the face painting or have to go to the huts or have to go inside the tent. They just walked around and looked at the decorations. I mean, I watched them, and I did notice that. So it was definitely activity by just walking around and checking things out. So I appreciate everything that was done by you and your staff. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Kudos to you. I mean, you really put McHenry on the map this weekend. Chief, do we have any idea how many people showed up?
Thousands. I think that the city is going to look at some cell phone data down the road.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'd like to see that.
But obviously, it was the most well-attended event that I think the city's seen in a long, 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 long.
Right.
They can't remember looking at their IDs.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Good. Thank you.
And there's some local businesses that keep track of scans on where they're coming from, so we're going to get that information from a few places in town. Doug Martin is working on the cell phone portion of it to try to see, which is a very good program to be able to see where these people are coming from too. But there was a lot of Wisconsin when I was doing IDs. Oh my gosh, yeah. So there was a lot from all over. So it's good, very good. So Alderman Cook, go ahead.
Chief, I had a real good response from everybody that went down to the Riverwalk, and there was a couple of incidents with your officers, and I'm glad they were on it, that they were past the time with open liquor, and the officers got right on them and stuff like that, and I'm thankful for that, because keep a lid on everything like that, and I appreciate that.
Alderman Alderman Miller.
So, thank you, Bill. It was an incredible weekend. I think what I observed the most and had comments is that the attendees appreciated that the events were in multiple places. Not everybody had to congregate in one spot. And I think we learned from that, or I learned from that, that events that are in multiple locations give everybody an opportunity. So I've already had a private discussion with Director Hobson about amping up some of the other events that we have to provide the same opportunities. Now that the Miller Point is done, it's just an awesome venue to do like Light the Night In and some other things this summer. So that's my takeaway. One of probably the most interesting moments, I was walking down Green Street, maybe doing my early pub crawl, and someone pulled over and said, "What's going on in McHenry?" And I was like, "Really? Look around." And they're like, "What is this?" I'm like, "Celebrating spring, get out of your car." And they did. They literally pulled over, parked, and got out of their car. I'm like, "Oh, Bill's going to kill me. 2 more people." But what a wonderful event. We should all celebrate the success. Vic and I have over and under on 10,000 attendees. So anybody wants part of that pool, he's holding the money.
Oh, definitely over 10,000.
It was
double that.
It was a lot. Go ahead.
I want to thank you too, Bill, because everybody that I came in contact said it was fantastic. And like I said, with the officers and all that, keeping maintaining control and all that, damn fine job.
Go ahead.
So I suggested to Bill and Suzanne over a text message that next year we could have non-tax revenue of VIP parking, that we need to have a lot and sell VIP parking passes, because people literally drove for half an hour, 40 minutes to find parking spots. And I think when we can have non-tax revenue, that I'd spend money to park close. Anyway.
You can always walk. I did. From your home.
No.
Not in Wisconsin.
Yeah, right.
Well, then, if you're in Wisconsin, you can get the parking, and if you live here, you walk. There you go.
Any other comments by council? Bill, go ahead.
I just, there's a lot of things that number one, thank you to everybody. I mean, it's a lot of people that make this happen, and it's, our Parks and Rec maintenance guys just killed it this weekend. If there was somebody to really thank, it's those guys and that team and what they did, especially the decorations. They took what we've done in the winter time and then transitioned that right into St. Patrick's Day. And so those people that are walking around, it's created an atmosphere throughout our downtown that people could flow to a number of businesses, and that to see everybody do so well by an event that you support is really, I know that there's that central location and it's taken some trust to build that, and we'll continue to build that. But to see what we've been able to do through partnerships of those businesses, and then our membership into Naturally McHenry County and our position with them, they're ones that have been able to help push this to bring those people in from the outside, people that would have never been here. So our partnerships and our staff are really what have made this event a success. And then our town, like you bring them here, and then our town has really showed out. And it was amazing to see that, I guess, just from somebody that's grown up here, was just so proud to see pictures of it. I didn't actually see anything besides the inside of the ticket tent, but I've seen some pictures that look pretty cool. It really was an amazing weekend for us as a community, and just thank everybody. And there was the volunteers, some people that are sitting up here, that just this event couldn't happen without those volunteers. So thank you to everybody else. You guys are the ones that have made this happen through your support of endorsement of the event, from helping there, just going there to show up, and then just continuing to grow and do what we do. And we've done it well, and we're going to continue to do that. So thank you all.
Thanks, Bill. I think that's it. Okay. Oh, Ross, go ahead.
I just want to remind everybody, tomorrow's special meeting at 6 p.m. here, 6 p.m. So,
all right. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Strag?
So moved.
Alderman Bassey?
I second.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.